If you've been listening to this podcast for a while and have started listening to other podcasts or seeking out other thought leaders on this topic of living outside the blueprint, you're going to notice that we are becoming more and more vocal. And there's a lot of different groups. We are definitely growing in numbers in terms of sharing our experience, sharing what we're facing, sharing how we're feeling, and really working towards being seen and heard and understood and represented. What we have to be aware of is it is being used as a weapon against women in other areas, or women who are at a crossroads, or women who still haven't come to terms with that yet. And that's what gives me pause. But it makes sense, though, that the louder that we are, that of course there's going to be a backlash. And of course there's going to be somebody or people that are going to try to rein it in. Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What is a blueprint breaker? If you live your life outside the typical traditional lifestyle blueprint, you are a blueprint breaker. We are here to start a conversation, to assemble resources, and to build a community. This podcast is for empowered women in midlife and beyond who are preparing for a powerful next era of life. My name is Amy A. Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for our conversations. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. To stay connected, up to date, and to receive all of our free resources and gifts along the way, join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Choice or circumstance? That's the topic for today's episode. I was reminded of this topic recently in a conversation with Carrie Wilkerson, my former coach and my mentor. You're going to get to hear the conversation in an episode very shortly. But we were talking about breaking blueprints. We were talking about societal expectations, venturing outside the norm, and just talk about the fact that it's not always intentional. Like, we're not intentionally trying to live against the blueprint or trying to intentionally break the blueprint. And you'll hear about Carrie's specific story with that. But I thought it was an important concept to think about, because the mission of this podcast is to really highlight the blueprint breakers and to make sure that they are seen, heard, understood, and represented, right? That's the whole goal here. And with the conclusion that it doesn't matter if it's by choice or by circumstance. But at the same time, the way things play out do get impacted based on whether it's a life choice or a life circumstance. And that's not even venturing into those who are not seen, heard, understood, or represented just for being who they are. It's got nothing to do with choice, circumstance, whatever. It's who they are, part of who they are, and part of their identity. This is just as we're making choices and as we're navigating circumstances that play out that are not in line with the traditional lifestyle blueprint. What does that mean? And how are we treated? Are we trying to be rebels? Are we trying to go against the grain? Not necessarily. So for myself, for my own story, just to recap, I'm outside the blueprint because I'm not married, never been married, and do not have children. I'm not a mother. Those are the two primary ways that I'm outside the normal societal expectation. And now that I'm aging, I'm venturing into another bucket of that, being, over 45 or whatever the cutoff is. So that's where I come in those areas. Now, obviously, the third bucket, the aging, that's not by, that's a circumstance. I didn't, I guess I have chose to get older because that's preferred to age. But it's not based on a specific choice that I made. I'm going to age. I'm going to become menopausal, regardless of what happens. But with my singlehood and with my motherhood, or not having motherhood, was that because of an active intentional choice, or was that how my circumstances ended up? And for me, it was not an intentional choice. in either of those categories. And I made choices that led to the circumstances that I'm in. And as a result of the circumstances, I have continued to make choices that will impact my future circumstances, right? So in terms of my singleness, I came close a few times to getting married, and either I chose to not continue with that particular partner, or they chose not to continue with me. Whichever way it played out, I made choices based on how I chose partners and what I was looking for in a potential life partner. I made choices on what actions I was willing to take to meet that life partner or not. We could debate it all day of, whether it was choice that has led me to my singleness, or circumstance and strictly bad luck, or some combination of all of that. And then in terms of motherhood, again, it was not an intentional choice to not have children. It was an intentional choice to not have children on my own without a partner. So that was a choice. So in some ways, I've chosen to not be a mother because I've chosen certain categories that don't work for me or were not in alignment with my heart and with what I wanted. So that's my own story for choice or circumstance. I've now evolved to a place where I can say that it is as a result of choices that I made, but I did not intentionally choose. I did not intentionally set out to stay single and to not become a mother. So there's that. I want to talk a second about just the definitions between it. When you look at the word choice, it means the act of choosing, selecting. Selection is a synonym. Option, having the power of choosing. So all of that is around choice. And when you're looking at circumstance, it's a fact or event that makes a situation the way that it is. And events that change your life over which you have no control. So it tends to be things that are outside our control. Even if some choices can lead to circumstances, it's still, when you're in the circumstance, you can't change it. You can impact future circumstances based on choices that you make now. And I'm talking about all this because I'm noticing that this is being used against us in many ways. And whether it's by choice or by circumstance, I want to share a little bit of research that I came across as I was preparing for this particular episode. This is an article. It's on the Wiley Online Library. It's called Choice or Circumstance: When Are Women Penalized for Their Success? And this is interesting. I'm just going to read the abstract from this particular research. You can find it at the online library, wiley.com. Past research shows that successful women in traditionally masculine roles often experience interpersonal penalties not sustained by similarly successful men. In 2 studies, we addressed the question of how the perceived motivation of women for counter-stereotypical positions affects whether such penalties occur. Specifically, we investigated whether women who are successful in male gender-typed roles are less likely to be penalized when their attainment of the role is due to circumstances than to focused and intentional goal pursuit. In study number 1, we compared reactions to women and men who had been successful in a leadership role on a STEM project, and showed that when a woman who had been arbitrarily assigned to the leadership role, that she incurred fewer interpersonal penalties than when she had actively pursued it. I'm going to pause there for a second. So as long as it was just sort of randomly given to her, she did not have penalties against her for how people treated her and interpersonal skills, as opposed to if she actively pursued and wanted and went after that leadership role. Woo. In study number 2, We replicated this and extended these findings by demonstrating similar effects for a successful woman in a financial position when she had attained her position due to a series of lucky breaks rather than purposeful, goal-oriented efforts. The results of these studies support the idea that the perception that women have actively chosen to pursue counter-normative goals plays an important role in determining whether they are penalized for their success in traditionally male domains. It was not simply being in the role, but how she got there that determined whether the derogation and dislike shown to be directed at successful women in the past research occurred. Whew. So if it's a choice rather than circumstance, you're treated differently. All right, here's another one. This one is from psychnet.apa.org. The study examines stereotypes of and emotional reactions to singles by choice and singles not by choice. Participants read a scenario describing persons who were either single by choice or single not by choice and rated their thoughts and feelings about these persons. Singles by choice are perceived as more lonely and miserable and as less warm and sociable than singles not by choice. However, they are perceived as more successful and potent. Anger and sympathy mediate the relations between choosing singlehood and stereotyping levels. Okay, so all of this kind of validates what I've been seeing out there in the world and what I've been hearing from people, et cetera. If society thinks that it's your choice, that you've chosen this side path or this different path, you are met with shame. There is a penalty to that. And there's shame that is infused in that. If it's by your circumstance, whatever that may be, you know, for singles, maybe you just didn't meet the right person. For being a mother, maybe you were faced with fertility issues, whatever your circumstances were, you tend to be faced with pity and shame when it's circumstances. The shame's a little bit different though. It takes on a different tint, but it's all directed at producing fear of not having these traditional elements of a lifestyle. So I'm going to try not to be political, but it's going to be really hard too, because this is a societal structure. This is a patriarchal structure that has happened. Now, I want to clarify that when I say that it's a patriarchal structure, this is nothing against any individual men or groups of men, because our patriarchal society is all of us. We are all contributing to how this is set up. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. But I want you to stop and think about, who does the traditional lifestyle blueprint serve? Like, what is the benefit for having a particular recommended path that we are indoctrinating our kids and our young adults with? What does that maintain? It maintains a patriarchal structure. It maintains a class structure. It maintains a race structure. There's things within our society that it helps to uphold and to keep locked in. And so what I'm seeing is that there are portions of our population that are getting really loud about speaking out against people who are living a lifestyle outside the traditional blueprint. So when you think about who does it benefit to do away with the concept of there's more than one way to do life, which is what we believe here. If they're trying to reinforce the idea that there is one way to do life, the best way, and anything else is shameful, or we pity you, or whatever it is, what is that helping to keep going? And what I have a problem with is using our circumstances as a cautionary tale, if you will, for young women to help maintain that fear and maintain that desperation and maintain that desire to have a traditional lifestyle. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while and have started listening to other podcasts or seeking out other thought leaders on this topic of living outside the blueprint, you're going to notice that we are becoming more and more vocal. And there's a lot of different groups, whether it's talking about being single and being single later in life, whether it's talking about not being a mother, maybe, or not having children, not by choice, whether that's because you didn't find a partner or infertility issues. We are definitely growing in numbers in terms of sharing our experience, sharing what we're facing, sharing how we're feeling, and really working towards being seen and heard and understood and represented. What we have to be aware of is it is being used as a weapon against women in other areas, or women who are at a crossroads, or women who still haven't come to terms with that yet. And that's what gives me pause. But it makes sense, though, that the louder that we are, that of course there's going to be a backlash. And of course there's going to be somebody or people that are going to try to rein it in. So I said, I'm going to share some examples of what I'm talking about. If you're listening to this podcast, I do suggest that at some point you check this out on my YouTube channel, because I'm going to share some videos, some short video clips from some social media sites that I've seen. A couple of them are disturbing and a couple of them are empowering. So I'm going to look a little bit at both. But I mean, it's just, I believe it's good for us to have the conversations, be aware of the backlash, and be ready to protect our young women against that backlash. That's what it comes down to. All right, I'm going to play this clip that I saw.
45% of working women ages 25 to 45 by 2030 will be non-married, no kids, single.
I'll tell you what's wrong with that. Nothing. I usually don't do things like this, but when I have to listen to men talk like that, I have no choice but to sedate myself with drugs and alcohol. Lately, I've been loud and proud about my status as a single, unmarried, childless, wild woman. And apparently some men cannot handle that. Every time I go on Instagram, I stumble upon SDE morons like this guy pontificating about how unhappy women like me must be.
If you think that you're going to be 45 years old, no kids, not married, and that you're going to genuinely be fulfilled in life because you made money, best of luck to you, honey.
Right. No, best of luck to you, honey. I'm sorry, but if the child-free joyride I'm on triggers you, here's a hint. If you need daily alpha content to remind you to be alpha, you might not be an alpha. Take it from an alpha. And the truth is, studies show that single women live longer and are happier. You want to know why? Because they wake up every day and they don't have to listen to dipshits like you. Anyway, I have to go because my single, unmarried is about to perform at my sold-out comedy show. I'd invite you, but there are no tickets left. Bye.
Okay, so that was one of the tamer clips that I've seen on this topic. So there are men out there who are trying to instill fear in young women that the path that we are on is hopeless. And it's to reinforce the idea that you better work at finding your man and having your family and doing what it takes to attract that and doing it on a timeline, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I chose the version of this that had Chelsea Handler responding with a little bit of humor. I gotta admit, I have mixed feelings about her approach. I love that she's getting like loud and proud about her whole child-free decisions and choices. I don't know. This is my own bias coming through. The fact that she does it in a way that can be a little off-putting. So that's showing me about my triggers. The fact that she's like talking about how she's like filling up her alcohol and partying all the time and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more ways of fulfilling your life. So I do have a little issues with her style, but that, again, that's my internal triggers. But my biggest point in sharing that is they are trying to scare these young women, you know, that be careful, don't become 45 and all of these things. And that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm not against getting married and having kids. I want to make sure that that's clear. I have no issues with that. I have issues with making anyone who doesn't have that feel shamed or feel less than or unworthy or just dismissed, just to be clear. So I just want to stop having these men using these things against us. I wanted to put that out there. I have a few more examples. Hold on. This one really breaks my heart a little bit because it is young women. And this shows this is not just coming from men, that women help to perpetuate these ideas and help to instill the fear and the shame.
At what age is it, would you say, over? You know, probably no one's going to marry you. If no one's tried to marry you yet, you're probably never going to get it.
Oh,
what age? What do you think? As a woman.
What age would you say when you're a spinster? Like, no offense. Like late 40s?
45?
Late 40s?
45?
Late 40s.
Over? Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
When do you think it's over?
Oh, yeah, I'd say probably 45 and over. Yeah,
Okay.
same.
45?
Same, yeah.
40?
So my heartbreak over this clip is it's young women. And actually that very easily could, that was me when I was in my 20s, even early 30s. And I probably would have said 35. I probably would have even said younger at that point. So my point in that is by really believing that impacts the decisions and the choices that they make, instead of really going after fulfilling their life and living it to its fullest. It leads to a state of desperation and potentially a series of bad decisions, or that could just be me. This next one I just saw on Instagram today and completely resonated.
I need the money to get my life back on track.
Who says you're not on track?
Yeah, I'm almost 30 and living with my parents. What part of my life is on track?
Oh, baby, no. I'm going to tell you a little secret. The track does not exist.
Oh, it does exist. You know, I need to grow my business, move out of my parents' house, fall in love, get married, buy a house, have kids, become Beyonce's personal makeup artist, and live happily ever after.
That is a fake schedule that society has been hammering into your head since the minute you were born. Who says you have to do it in that order? You don't need a husband to buy a house. Hello? You don't need to wait to meet the love of your life to love your life. Your happily ever after can start right now.
Shout out to Tia for helping her niece reframe that thought concept that she had, but it's still alive and well. You know, she's almost 30 years old and she's feeling the pressure. I'm really, really happy when I saw a few weeks ago, and I did a reaction video to it, when Michelle Obama called it out and really framed it in such a beautiful, beautiful way.
That we're trying to cram our lives into these narrow definitions. You can only be happy if you find the love of your life and get married, right? Some people aren't built for marriage. Some people may never find a partner that they love, but there's happiness on the other side. I mean, I know you've experienced this. It's like, how many people have come up and go, are you going to have a baby?
Yes.
You know, it's like you got a #1 TV show, you're a kabillionaire, and it's almost like people are still like, oh, but you're not a mother. I'm so sorry for you. And it's like, no, Oprah's happy.
Very.
I've seen her. She real happy.
I'm doing all right.
My whole point with today's topic and today's conversation is that whether you are breaking blueprints intentionally or not, whether it's by your choice or by your circumstances, You deserve to be seen, heard, understood, and represented. I would ask you to think about your choices and your decisions, and the choices that you make based on the circumstances that you're in will affect your future circumstances. So keep that in mind. How you respond, how you choose to live your life now is what's going to affect what is up ahead. It is now time for this week's segment, Ebbs and Flows. Just as a reminder of what this recurring segment is all about, it's an opportunity to take a moment and look at all the areas of your life, all the categories that are in your personal customized lifestyle blueprint, what's important to you, and in those categories, how's it going right now? What is in flow? And where are you seeing those ebbs? So we're going to check in on ebbs and flows. So for me, what is in flow? Absolutely fun is in flow. And just as a reminder, my particular blueprint, the categories all start with F. We have fun, family, fulfillment, fitness, faith, and future. And in flow is fun for sure. I had a last minute trip into New York City this past weekend. I was able to meet up with a friend of mine, Melanie from California. She was here moving her son in for his summer internship. And we just got to soak up so much New York City energy. I just love that city. It always reminds me of my early adulthood when I went there to pursue my acting career right out of college. But I was able to just soak up so much goodness. We went to a concert Friday night. We saw Bryan Adams and Joan Jett. Talk about nostalgic. Tons of fun. And then I got to see Goodnight Oscar on Saturday night on Broadway with Sean Hayes. I'm telling you, if you are anywhere near New York City, and you might have seen this on my Instagram, if you are anywhere near New York, go see that show before the run is finished. Sean Hayes is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I knew he was good in Will and Grace. He played Jack in Will and Grace. So, I knew he was talented. I was blown away by his performance. The character study that he did for the character that he was playing, Oscar, and it was based on true story. But I mean, it was poignant. It was funny. It was everything. And then his piano performance that he really played himself. I mean, the whole play led up to the crescendo of this piano performance. And it was mind-blowing. Like the audience just went together on this emotional wave together. So I cannot recommend strongly enough Goodnight Oscar on Broadway. So my fun is in flow for sure. My fitness, last week it was an ebb because I said I have some doctor's appointments that I keep putting off making for no particular reason other than just procrastination. I got that done, so I feel good. I've got some upcoming appointments, getting everything all squared away and taken care of. And I also feel good because on my health journey, my weight journey, I do have a goal in mind for my own weight loss. Not a number doesn't matter so much. It's more, for me, it's more the way that I feel and how my body feels and how my energy feels. And I am where I was before I left for Bali and did all that amazing eating a month or so ago. So I'm still moving forward wonderfully towards my goal, or I should say goal range, because I don't really have a number goal. So I'm feeling really, really good about that. What is an ebb is my fulfillment category. And under the fulfillment category, which was in flow last week, I believe, that's professional life. I'm feeling really, really good about the work that I'm doing. I'm so proud of these episodes. I think the topics that I'm covering here are interesting and important, and the interviews and the guests that I'm having are just, these women are just amazing. So I'm feeling really, really good about all of that. I'm I'm not satisfied. The ebb is coming with my lack of satisfaction. Like I really wish I was getting more of a vocal response, like a direct response from you, the listener. And so I'm trying to dive into that and try to figure that out. I really need more reviews on this podcast. And so I'm feeling, a little, I gotta admit, I'm just feeling a little bit like, I'm not accomplishing everything that I wanted to accomplish from the standpoint of wanting to hear from other women and hear your stories and hear what's going on for you. I also wanted to finish my ebook, my ultimate sabbatical guidebook. I wanted to finish that. I would have liked to have finished it last week. I don't think I'm even going to finish it this week. So I'm feeling a little bit of ebb about that. So hopefully I can bring all that back up into flow. So let me hear from you. Drop me a line, please. My email is amy@amyapalmer.com. I'd love to hear about your ebbs and flows. What are your priorities right now and what's going well and what could be going better? Would love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of the Blueprint Breakers podcast, Choice or Circumstance. I would like to quickly share my disclaimer. I am not a therapist, a doctor, lawyer, financial advisor, any of that. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. I encourage you to take what I share here as a launching point to discover what is right for you. Thank you to the listener for listening. Thank you for your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. And thank you for sharing this episode with your friends. I'd love to meet you, so please come join me this Thursday, June 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our After the Show virtual discussion group. It's an opportunity to connect with other Blueprint Breakers, to talk about any topics that are on your mind or anything that you've heard on this podcast that resonates with you, that you have comments around, feedback, questions, etc. To sign up and to get all the details on our month-long launch party, to get the details, the links, the schedule, the giveaways, sign up at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Have a great day and keep on breaking those blueprints and writing your own.